Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, how are we doing on this Thursday? I guess we've just found out that you can't go wrong on a Thursday.
I know. I'm not sure why John said that, but
that's right. You can't beat a Thursday. No further questions on why not.
He's both the guest and it's his show, so I'm going to agree with him. And
that's right.
Thursday.
I'm just saying stuff that sounds deep, like Kelvin Yaboa.
There you go.
No, doing really well. Looking forward to the show. It's been a fun run here. We get to talk about how well the team's playing and preparing for the next game. So
absolutely. And as you've heard, the voice of Jon Marthaler there. John, how are we doing on this Thursday? A lot to talk about, a lot to dive into here today.
I'm only here to talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps. No Minnesota talk, all Vancouver Whitecaps talk.
So are we just going with this is the Vancouver Whitecaps podcast now because of what they did last night in Champions Cup action?
It probably should be. By the middle of the season, I think every team podcast will be a Vancouver Whitecaps podcast.
Manny,
we're having a couple weeks at home here, so it'll be a big game, and hopefully it'll be a game for the battle at top of the West.
It is funny, like that could be a marquee game, except now their Champions Cup semifinals are on the other side of that game, so it's like I don't if they play their next pro roster in that game, it wouldn't be too much of a shock.
Some absolutely incredible stuff last night in CONCACAF Champions Cup action for Vancouver, giving up a last-minute goal and then scoring just moments later. Just some wild scenes. It's the second time Vancouver this season alone has knocked off a Mexican side in Mexico. I believe I saw a stat that it's only been done by an MLS team three times in history, and Vancouver's done it twice this season. So Vancouver just upsetting all the odds. I don't think anybody expected them to be this good. And we've said it time and time again on the podcast this year, but Vancouver just continues to just impress in ways that I don't think anybody was expecting, Manny.
Yeah. I mean, especially again, we talk about their talisman Ryan Gold being out. We talk about what would this do? It's galvanized a team that believes they're good and they're strong and they're solid. And if you watch the game last night, they were very good. Both legs, by the way, both legs was 1-1 and 2-2. And I think they were justified results and a justified going through on away goals. And they played well on the road yesterday. They really did. They handled them. They got forward. They got chances. What an exciting game. So like I said, I was kind of joking, but my brain is going to a couple weeks. I'm so excited to have them come here. I think it's going to be a great game. You got two teams playing really well in the league right now. And certainly have a team in Vancouver that's doing an outstanding job in the CONCACAF Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. John, who are we more impressed by? Vancouver, what they've done this season, or San Diego being an expansion side and pulling a St. Louis and being near the top of the Western Conference already and being, it seems like one of the more defensively solid teams in the league?
Yeah, San Diego is funny. I think I said on this podcast that this was like 4 weeks ago. I already said I'm grumpy about San Diego. Like they should have to serve a couple of years of penance of being terrible before they're allowed to be good. And it's only gotten worse since then. It's only made me more grumpy. Like they played Seattle last week and I thought, now it's time for these upstarts to be showing their place. And they absolutely beat the doors off Seattle. So I think I'm reaching almost St. Louis City levels of grumpiness in terms of San Diego right now. And I'm sure their fans are, they're exactly like St. Louis City fans where it's like, all right, we figured out soccer. Finally San Diego FC is here to show everybody how soccer is done. So I'm very grumpy about San Diego, less so about Vancouver because I mean, they're you learn the name Jesper Sorensen right now because he's going to be coach of the year at the end of the year. I think he's already earned enough votes for coach of the year at this point. Like, just fill out that part of your ballot. For once, it won't be Wilfred Nancy as the automatic write-in for who should be the MLS coach of the year. Now it's Jesper Sorensen.
You're thinking Jesper Sorensen's going to get it over Javier Mascherano when Miami take home the Supporter Shield?
Honestly, there's no reason any Inter Miami head coach should win coach of the. I mean, it's like the voting for Carlo Ancelotti as the European manager of the year. Like the only thing you've really done is keep guys from fighting each other in the locker room. That's you're like the babysitter.
I like how you brought that on the week that they lost 3-0 to Arsenal.
I know.
general, you're correct.
The best part was after one of the goals, they cut to Ancelotti, and he always has sort of the permanent eyebrow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's just, that look of that pure Carlo Ancelotti look of just pure bemusement at what's going on.
Although I still can never count Madrid out. So I
Oh yeah,
still,
it'll probably be 5-1 in the next leg.
I still believe they'll find a way, but we'll see.
My favorite is that Thierry Henry on the CBS broadcast after the game is like, yeah, Arsenal haven't locked this up yet. Like Arsenal legends, like, no, we're not counting Real Madrid out, even though they're down 3-0. Like,
Yeah.
that's just great.
Anybody who's watched Real Madrid in the Champions League was like, well, I'd say Arsenal is the slight favorite, but not by much.
Yeah. My viewpoint of San Diego is just it's probably a deeper conversation about the ability to build rosters in MLS, of the flexibility versus some of the teams like the Galaxy who don't have the same maybe kind of off-season flexibility when you win the championship. So there is obviously the open DP spots, the U22s, the GAM. They're certainly showing a little bit like probably in a different sport. The Kraken did a couple of years ago in the NHL, or Las Vegas Knights, and then St. Louis now in San Diego. I've done a really good job of kind of using a lot of mechanisms to create a pretty competitive team. And I think overall, though, I give it more the credit to Vancouver because we're talking about the league plus this run in the CONCACAF champions, and nobody saw that coming from a team like this that had an offseason that was the coaches firing, ownership group potential change. So there was a lot of uncertainty for Vancouver going into the season, both on and off the field, and how well they've done. It's crazy impressive. So
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, they didn't make a whole lot of big changes roster wise. They didn't make a lot of additions roster wise, and
they lost the designated player. That was their big addition. Apparently, getting rid of Stuart Armstrong was the best move any offseason team made.
Yeah, months after just bringing him in, right?
Yeah, exactly. He played 4 games or whatever it was.
Continuing on the Champions Cup action, Messi powering Miami past LAFC 3-1 second leg win in that one. Miami advances on to face Vancouver, and it's the way it's set up. We will have Liga MX final, or Liga MX versus MLS final, with either, I believe, Cruz Azul or Tigres going through, or Miami or Vancouver going through. Quick predictions: who's going through in each of those sides and who's going to win it all? John, I'll start with you.
I mean, it truly is the grandes of North American soccer with Tigres and Cruz Azul, Inter Miami, and Vancouver. The big daddy of them all, the Vancouver Whitecaps. I also think it's funny that fairly famously last year Messi and friends didn't make the trip to Vancouver because it's such a long trip and you got to play on turf and whatever. Are they going to skip the second leg again? Like, what's happening here? Maybe Vancouver's finally going to get that visit that all their fans missed out on, and maybe Vancouver's got a chance of drawing more than 6,000 fans for a game too. So that'll be great.
Shots at Vancouver and Miami there.
All right, wow. I got all my shots in. My John's
picks feeling spicy this morning.
my picks to advance. I think Miami will probably go through because they have Messi, and always Messi scores 2 goals, and it doesn't really matter what else is going on. So that's the obvious pick. And the way this year has gone, we really should pick Vancouver. That would be the smart pick, but it seems likely. And then on the other side, I think probably Cruz Azul will go through. You can never count out Cruz Azul screwing up right at the end of something. So,
Manny, your predictions?
I like John's picks. I'm going to go with Miami too, but I'm going to have a little asterisk in that it's partly because I actually think Miami suffered a little last night in their game. Like, I think they had to really dig deep and fight. They had a couple goals called back, even one that I thought was good. It was when it was 2-1, LAFC was going through at that point. So most of the second half, Miami was out of the competition. And they really had to dig down and find, and they got, kind of a controversial Pico goal. I think it was a PK in the end goal. I think that helps them get ready for this Vancouver series. Let them know that none of this is going to be easy the west way through. Messi seems to be getting healthier and fittier since he got injured. So I'm going to pick Miami just because I think that adversity is going to help them this next series. But like John said, going to Vancouver, it will be really interesting to see where the first leg is for me. Just because if you're starting on turf versus ending on turf, is going to be really an interesting thing. I actually probably would rather make the prediction once I know who's got the home and away.
I think Inter Miami's home first, and
Okay.
their second leg is away. I think that's right.
Gosh, I might take Vancouver then, just because of that. Anyways. And then we go Tigres. I think John's right about it. Cruz Azul tends to like figure out ways to like get a lead or blow a series up. If it was a one-off game, I might have taken Cruz Azul, but over 2 games, I feel like their history has been pretty tough to blow 2 games.
Cruz Azul is the Timberwolves of Mexican soccer.
Yes. Big game tonight for the Wolves, by the way. Big one against Memphis tonight.
This is a Timberwolves podcast. No, we went from a Vancouver Whitecaps podcast. Now it's a Timberwolves podcast.
Oh my gosh, cross sports. We're doing it all.
That's right.
Let's just
It's
hope
what
no
the
more
fans want.
Let's just hope no more 25-point blown leads. I can't handle that anymore. I can't
There's
handle the other team.
It's 24. Get it right.
It feels like 25. It was a game they should have won. They had it in the bag. All right. Continuing on with the weekend that was in MLS. We already mentioned San Diego 3-0 over Seattle. What an incredible result for them. Kansas City getting the new manager, Bounce Manny, just as you predicted. No Peter Vermees for the first time in 14 years, and they get a big win against their rival St. Louis City, a 2-0 win at that. And it was Dejan Juvelic doing what everybody expected him to do when he arrived in Kansas City. It's score goals.
Yeah, he looked sharp. He almost should have had a hat trick. So it was. I mean, I think that's a pretty cool rivalry that they have now. And I still, my brain kind of separates the two. They had the coaches bounce. I still can't believe not seeing Peter Vermees there. He had such a great career. He had such an impact on U.S. soccer, and especially Kansas City soccer. It must have felt weird, but certainly for them to get that win and get their first one of the year was big. Probably huge for their fan base.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
What do you think Peter Vermees was doing during the game on Saturday?
I don't know. Probably relaxing.
No, that's not right. Of all the possible candidates, I know relaxing is not what Peter Vermees was doing.
Yeah, there you go.
Was he watching Sporting Kansas City on an iPad?
Yes.
Went through 3 iPads that game. Just broken screens everywhere.
That clean sheet mixed with the Seattle or the San Diego clean sheet. There was a lot of clean sheets across the Western Conference this weekend. It's very odd. You look at the Western Conference scorelines. Houston 1-0 over LAFC. Portland, Austin 0-0 between those two sides. Vancouver a 2-0 win over Colorado. And then the most shocking result of the weekend for me, considering that it just continues to show the early season struggles of the defending champions. Real Salt Lake 2 or correction, Diego Luna 2, LA Galaxy 0 in this one, John. It was an incredible performance from Real Salt Lake, but LA Galaxy continued to just struggle mightily this season, coming off of winning the championship last year.
It's funny, from a Minnesota perspective, you already knew that Minnesota United dropping points to Sporting Kansas City was bad, but dropping points to the Galaxy at home looks worse and worse, like almost as bad as dropping points to Sporting KC, because the Galaxy are they're bad. They're just bad. They lost in the Champions Cup this week. It's just everything is terrible there. And Greg Vanney is on his way to being the Claudio Ranieri at Leicester, win the championship and get fired like halfway through the next season. It's unbelievable.
Wow. John calling his shot today.
What are they going to do? They fairly famously have $0 in GAM. They have all of their player spots taken. Everybody's hurt. I guess Paintsill was back this week, so that'll help them. But
that might be a saving grace, is that everybody's hurt.
Yeah, it's just the vibes are terrible. It's like the last 6 years of the Galaxy were interrupted with 1 year of good stuff, and now we're back to the Galaxy being the Chicago Fire of the Western Conference.
Manny, I knew we went into this season questioning what the Galaxy would do because of the amount of injuries and the amount of players they had to send out in the offseason, because, as you mentioned, the lack of flexibility they had in their roster construction. But I don't think anybody expected it to be this bad right off the bat. Just 2 points through 7 games. That is a wild turnaround from how they ended last season.
Yeah, I mean, and my brain got a little defensive when John kind of ripped on our 2-2 draw here in Minnesota. We had 5/6 starters out and should have won the game and didn't close it out. I'm hurt a little bit, but he's right. The Galaxy right now, I don't really have any kind of like ability to go too crazy with excuses because all teams have injuries, international break. Like at some point here, you're one of the most, if not the most historic franchise in the league. Um, it just doesn't feel right. I don't care how many injuries you have. I don't care how many you should probably have picked up more points to start the season. So they should be panicking a little bit. Because a lot of teams are looking at them and like, oh, this is a great chance to pick up 3 points now, which is what you don't want at this point in the season. I kind of said that 4-game moniker. Now it's like RSL need to get back on track. Boom, Galaxy are coming to town. Great. Like that is not a good feeling and not a good place to be for the Galaxy.
Do we see a potential turnaround coming for this Galaxy side, or is this just going to be a season-long struggle for them, Manny?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it really depends on where the roster mechanism moves. I mean, John already just talked about like, how little GAM they have. I'm sure they're trying to buy GAM from next year, and I'm sure they're going to try to figure out, when Ricky Puig can come back. But I just have an experience with my own personal ACL injuries, and even looking at Ricky Puig's body type, he tends to be on more like the 12 to 16 month injury length, not this 6 to 10 month. So I really don't believe he will be effective this year or give them kind of the savior second half of the season kind of run. It's tough. I mean, their back line does not look like it did last year. Both of the foreign players, and I just don't know. They do not look like a team like last year that deserved to win the championship and make that run.
Yeah, it's very wild. You mentioned you mentioned earlier on when talking about San Diego the amount of flexibility he had, and clearly this part of the conversation with how the Galaxy has struggled this season is because of the lack of flexibility they had this offseason. Feel free to comment if you want. If you don't, that's fine. I understand. Based off of the league. Is there something to be said about that lack of flexibility that teams have coming off of championship seasons, being forced to make as many changes as the Galaxy were? Should there be some changes to that, or is that just what championship teams should have to face when they've kind of piled everything up and built everything up for this one season of success, and now they kind of have the bill is due, I guess?
I'm not sure how you decided this was going to be like a Galaxy.
I didn't. I just
defending the Galaxy's reality show, but
I'm not.
It does sound like a little bit, Jonathan. I'm calling it out.
I know.
Because every team for the last 20, 25 years has had to deal with this part of it. And the league is still evolving. And what I would say is like, listen, there will be some more deregulation. There'll be some more roster. But if there's one team that actually has been given the roster flexibility
that's
over
fair.
the last decades, it is the Galaxy. So for them to complain, and then I look in my head and I see what they did with Sean Davis in December, where they traded,
right,
traded away Brugman, they signed Sean Davis and like $1 million contract, and then they just, did their offseason buyout on him like a month and a half later.
That's a guy a lot of teams across the league would want in their midfield.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things both within the front offices on the field where I give them so much credit last year. So good, and what a great run, and then I look and say, you know what, this is a tough business. And the really good clubs and franchises forgot a way to do the short-term and long-term planning. And somehow the Galaxy forgot about, we play every year. So
that's the part that drives me nuts was this narrative that somehow the Galaxy were being punished for winning a championship. It wasn't like the league went and took away all their GAM because they won the championship. That's not how this worked. They just didn't plan beyond the end of 2024. I understand that they're frustrated that they had to dump players, but the rules didn't change. The rules are the same. The rules are the same for everybody else. And they were the ones who were like, well, I guess we'll use up all our spots and all of our money. And then usually what happens is MLS comes in and changes the rules for us. And that didn't happen this year. And the Galaxy are like, I don't understand. Where's our extra DP spot that we usually get at this point? It's maddening, the idea that the Galaxy were somehow punished. No, you punished yourself. You were the ones that made the roster decisions. The rules haven't changed. Everybody has the same rules. The idea that the Galaxy have in any way been hard done by MLS or by their own success. You won the trophy. Congratulations. You went all in and got it. And that's good for you. But you're getting punished for it now, and you should be. It's your own planning. This is your own fault. Look inside. The call's coming from inside the house.
I didn't mean for that to sound like a question defending the Galaxy.
No,
it's just not how it was.
And they are, like I said, behind the curtain, I would even add in the the drama even of players themselves going to the front office because they won and wanting for more money and wanting to and the front office navigating who to keep, who to get rid of, how to kind of build or rebuild a roster. It is really hard. And it really is in most of these sports, a couple decisions, and sometimes it takes you 3 to 5 years to rebuild your roster. So, we sometimes obsess about all these signings or different moves. They do affect potentially long-term success of your club, for sure. Now, like I said, having said that, the Galaxy have been interesting in that they really got overtaken by LAFC. I still think they'll be in a weird way be able to get this roster back by next year. I do think, or even maybe at mid-season, I'll be wrong. But they do have some pieces here. They have some potential players who will be impactful going forward. And they just kind of got hit right now with a really again, they're not structured. Every part of their team right now, I don't know how they're going to find a lot of goals. I don't know how they're going to stop a lot of goals. I don't know how they're going to control the midfield. So they've got some work to do by the summer transfer window for sure.
And another thing I will say is any team that gets to run a local academy in Southern California that's complaining about not having enough young, low-priced talent, quit it. Quit complaining. My gosh.
I realize I sparked a nerve with Jon today.
I love it, though. I like it.
Got a fired up Jon.
Drives me insane.
Hey students, need a study break? If you got a .edu email address, we've got deals for you. Sign up for our student deals program to be notified of ticket offerings as low as $20 for various Minnesota United home games. Visit MNUFC.com to learn more.
Wow, I love this. Let's jump right into the New York City match then, because I think this is a perfect attitude to go into this one. I loved this match. This was a chaotic match because of the field. It started off with early goals for Minnesota, but then ended with them having to just bunker down and hold on. It felt like for dear life. So let's get general thoughts before we kind of break down the individual big moments in this match. General thoughts on a 2-1 win for the Loons this weekend. Jon, I'll start with you.
It's funny that you mentioned the field is tiny. It's weird and it's tiny, but also the fact they have got to find a way to get like a sky camera or something in there, because using the camera of it's like the behind third base camera, but it makes the field. It takes what is the smallest field in MLS and makes it look like it's a 7-a-side field. It's unbelievable. And somehow they also don't have the camera in the right spot. Like Oluwaseyi's goal a minute in, you saw it live and it was like, well, he was at least 15 yards offside. There's no competition. And then you see the actual camera angle that's more or less even. It's like, well, he might still have been offside, but he was offside by a foot, maybe not the 15 yards that it appeared from the camera angle. I don't know what they're using for the camera angle, but they've got to figure out how to hang a sky cam up there. But then again, we're talking about a team that has a banner the size of my laptop that was celebrating their league championship. So maybe they've got some other problems. I've heard their new stadium is going to be very nice, which of course is what everyone says about every new stadium, but they can't build it fast enough. It can't get here soon enough. That's true. Because playing a Yankee Stadium is ridiculous.
I think it's 27. It will be one of the best stadiums just by location. I mean, you're going to have the ability of everybody in Manhattan, everybody in anywhere in New York, and it's just going to be a great destination. They will have one of the best locations, stadiums in the world, if I'm being honest. So
it's right by Citi Field, right?
Yes, it's right
Citi Field, and is that right where the U.S. Open is too?
Yes, that's Queens.
The U.S. Tennis Open. I know that there's a lot that goes into these things, and I know that local planning rights, and especially in the boroughs of New York City, are difficult. But I will say that taking 10 years to figure out that they want to put the stadium right next to the other stadium, that seems like it's a little bit too long of a time frame.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I was at the game live. The first thing is, ironically, live, it totally looked onside, from my viewpoint. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely a goal. And then I did see the replays, and I was like, it is the reality that this is a 110 by 70 diagonal field that, has a lot of weird kind of vibes to it. And, for me, what I really liked about the game was we were hungry from the get-go. Like, again, I'll highlight Will Trapp because I thought he started the game outstanding. And ironically, he scores one of the goals on that day. But he was just winning battles in midfield, making really good passes and really good decisions. And I think that unsettled the NYCFC. I think they were a little bit shocked by just our organization, our structure we've seen for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I think it led to some pretty good openings and chances. And when I saw the game live, we really exposed that ability to move the ball quickly in the middle and then really hurt them the way Yabo and Tani did really through the first 15, 20 minutes, And again, I do think when we score first, we're really hard to play against because now we really can set up and really decide when we want to attack, when we want to defend. And it was just great to get that first goal and to be up 2-0 by halftime. And it was obviously very important to go into half up 2-0 and have Dane, I say save, obviously at the crossbar, the PK.
I loved the way this game started, obviously scoring 53 seconds into this match makes it really easy. Dan has to change his calls immediately. He's still getting the field set, getting everything set, and immediately jumping right into a goal call is so much fun to change up the broadcast, but change up the game. But looking back at that goal, it's such a good goal from a Minnesota standpoint. Nice takeaway and then feed it into Joaquin Pereira, who was immense on that left-hand side all afternoon. And he just finds Tani Loache on the run there, and Tani now surpasses Kelvin Yeboah for team leading goals, which, scoring 5 goals in 4 games, I think it is now. That's a really good run for Tani, and you love to see this attack really coming to life now. But no better way to start a game, Manny, and upset the opposition coach and change how things go than scoring in the first minute.
Yeah, that is a fun first half when you start that way, and then you keep going. You get a second goal. He changed the system before halftime, even. Yeah. Like I've got to get something and not have this go to 3-0. And then I think you mentioned Pereira. That it's the second game in a row now where there's been some great attacking, but also just some great possession between Romero, Pereira, and Rosales. That is just really fun. So even though we're still having this, you kind of like loss of possession versus the other team in terms of the numbers, when we do have it in certain moments, we're really good, and we're really good at that leading to a chance. And then obviously on the other side, there's some great connection between Bongi and basically Load. And then now every game, it seems like Tani and Yeboah are just kind of building into like how dangerous they can be against the opposing. And they're both kind of competitively starting to show off how dangerous it can be. Obviously, this game with Yeboah was a little bit off, but he still essentially created 2 breakaways, just missed the chances. And Tani was as lively as ever and getting another goal. So it was a really, really fun kind of first half to show and put our chest out. My only downside was obviously Boxall getting the yellow card. And then the PK, which we should be able to debate, probably wasn't a PK. But I just didn't love the way Boxy kind of dove in with his right leg. I would have rather let him shepherd the guy out of bounds, or if you're going to try to block it, go with your left leg and don't even give the ref any chance to kind of call the PK. So, again, that was probably the one negative that I felt for the first half. But even then, Dane stood tall and made sure that we got to the halftime up 2-0.
Going on that PK note, I'm of the opinion that if you can't figure out whether to change the call in the first 60 seconds, just move on. Like, just go with the call that you had on the field and move on. I don't think anybody's going to complain. I think we all complain when it takes 6 minutes. I'm sure Alonso Martinez will want those 6 minutes back, probably got in his head a little bit. But if you can't, there's got to be a timer on this. You can't go 6 minutes and kind of hemming and hawing of, is it a penalty? Is it not? After 60 seconds, you're done, move on. I don't think anyone in world soccer is going to complain, even if it goes against their team.
You just got to have some common sense. Like they kept replaying it like, oh, did Michael Boxall touch the ball? Like maybe, and we're talking not about did he kick the ball? Like, did he maybe brush the ball with the front of his spike? If you have to replay it 1,000 times in slow motion, it's not clear and obvious. That's not a clear and obvious error. Yeah. You need to think about what you're doing here rather than going, well, we just got to get it right and we got to make sure blah, blah, blah. It's not going to be a clear and obvious error. It can't be. If you have to replay it at that speed that many times, there's no way that's a clear and obvious error. Number one, the VAR should never have called the ref to the monitor. Number two, when he gets there, he can't look at it 5,000 times. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, John, I think you're probably right with it. By the VAR calling the ref to the monitor, the ref's like, huh, I thought I got this one right. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm gonna have to overthink it maybe. Because really, usually when the VAR should be calling, it should be like, oh, this is clear and obvious.
Yeah, you've screwed up like big time. You need to go look at it again because you made a mistake. Not just, I don't know what happened. Let's delay the game while we look at it. It can't be that. It can't be that because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, Jonathan, did you see the difference there when I was like, hey, the VAR is like, hey, we might have missed this one. And like, John's like, you screwed up, you suck, you messed up the call. That's the kind of stress that creates the issues, Jonathan. That's when he's like, oh my God, did I miss this call? No,
Manny was trying to be diplomatic about it, and John's coming in just
coming in
hot and heated about it. I love it. All right, let's go back a little bit. Will Trapp scoring just his 5th MLS goal, I believe his 3rd in a Loons kit. John, you had a bunch of good stats that I had to steal for the broadcast. He had 3 shots on target in the first half, which is as many as he's ever had in an entire season.
In an entire season. Unbelievable. The funny thing was I saw him at training yesterday on the way out, and he was like, 3 shots on target in a season? What's that about? But the funny thing was I went back and looked up his other MLS goals, and what I found out, and I didn't know this.
They're good. They are good.
In 2018, he scored one of the greatest goals in MLS history. Game winner, 92nd minute, 35-yard bomb, and there were Columbus Crew fans on social media that were like, that was the goal that saved me as a Columbus Crew fan. It saved the Crew. It gave us hope during the darkest time. And this was, back when the Crew were about to get relocated to Austin because their owner was terrible. But the most amazing thing, and somebody posted something that American Soccer Analysis had done an analysis and noted that Will Trapp did not increase his shot taking after that, which is the least human thing I've ever heard of, because anyone else that scored a goal like that would have shot 5 times a game for the rest of their career. Absolutely. You score a goal like that one time, it's like, well, trying to recapture that feeling was the most human behavior ever. And somehow Will Trapp has managed to avoid that. And
you score a goal like that, you're going to the rec league shortly after, try and do it again.
Yeah, like maybe you should retire after. You should think about retiring after that, because it's never going to get any better.
Basically, you guys are like, keep an eye on Declan Rice. He's going to be shooting nonstop for the next.
Declan Rice should retire after that game. He's never going to have another performance like that. There's no reason to keep playing soccer.
No, I really thought Will was really sharp, like on both sides of the ball. He really got around. And so I don't think it's like, I do think that's what happens when you're playing well. Then other areas of your game that maybe you're not always as comfortable, you get in those spots for those chances to happen. And definitely the volley he had where the keeper had to make a really good save, and he had a good early shot that was at the keeper, but it was struck really well. And I just love the set piece. I just love that we've been throwing the ball in the box. We've been pushing teams back. And the next thing you know, especially on a tight field like we did, they had a great play set up that caused chaos. And, Will still had to keep it low and strike it hard. So it was a fun goal and fun to go up 2-0, given how we were playing too. I thought it was well deserved.
I liked that goal because when Perea was setting it up, I was saying to Dan, like, all right, he's probably going to swing this in, try and aim for a body in the middle, and just seemed like the most obvious answer. And he just kind of rolls it over to Will Trapp, and you don't see Will Trapp immediately in the monitor. You're like, what's going on here? And then Trapp just steps on and just blasts it in off the foot of Matt Freese into the back of the net. That's a fun goal, clearly a training ground goal. I love those kind of plays that just happen every once in a while. And Will Trapp getting his goal, his 5th one in league play, is 3rd, if I'm remembering correctly, as a Loon.
Yep. 3 as a Loon. 1 from the penalty spot last year.
Yep. Other key moments, as you mentioned early on, Manny, penalty kick goes off the crossbar after an extended VAR call. But in the second half, things kind of changed. Well, before that, actually, John, you mentioned it in the post-game press conference, the manager, Pascal Janssen, forced to go with 2 substitutions in the end of first half, which you rarely see, usually only for injuries, but these weren't injuries. These were clearly a coach that was a little irritated with how his team was playing and wanted to change things up. We rarely ever see that, Manny. What obviously New York were playing very, very poorly in those first 40 minutes before the substitutions. Things changed afterwards, obviously, but as a manager on the touchline, when you're looking at it and you're thinking about a first half substitution, not just 1, but 2, what goes into your mind as you're getting that prepared and getting prepared to take those players off and trying to explain to them what your reasoning was.
Yeah, no, I think you've got to be honest with yourself about how you want to approach the game tactically, and then you have to be honest with yourself about the individual assessment of what is causing this. Is it the tactics? Is it a combination of the individuals and the tactics, or is it just some individuals having some really tough days? And again, I think that I didn't think this first half was like a smash and grab. We were up 2-0. I think this was like every time we did some battles and good passes in the midfield, we had an ability to get in behind, and particularly, Kelvin and Tani broke free, and Bongi got up on the wing on the right, and Joseph on the left, and Pereira through the middle. Ironically, I probably didn't say load, which tells me that he probably was a little bit off this game, if I'm being honest. But still was solid. But he probably wasn't his best day out there. So long story short, I think my viewpoint is I'm just getting to know this coach too. What he did helped kind of solve something, and they almost got a PK and almost went into the halftime 2-1, which again, I was really happy because I felt like we deserved a 2-0 lead at half, and we got it. 2-1 this might have been a different game just because they might have come out a little bit different in terms of how they tried to get forward and throw numbers to try to get back and get back into the game.
What was John? I'm not remembering exactly what his response was. What was Ramsey's response to your question when you asked him about essentially forcing the other team to make 2 first half substitutions, change up their tactics in the first 45 minutes?
Yeah, what I wanted him to say was something along the lines of, that's the best thing, the best feeling as a manager is to make your counterpart miserable, which of course is not what he said. What he said was something like, that's not really the way I think about it, but
what's it going to take to get Eric Ramsey to say something like that?
Well,
pretty stoic and pretty even keeled.
He's even keeled, and he's smart. He's too smart for that, I think. But that's not going to make me stop trying. I'm going to keep trying to see if I can get him to say something inflammatory. I don't know what would have to happen for him to completely lose it and just be, straight up inflammatory in a press conference. But maybe he's got an inner Gerhard Struber in there that we'll find at some point.
Keep believing, John. Keep believing.
Yep. You got to keep trying.
He's young enough. So you're right. No, like I said, it was a great first half. I think, and actually, I think the second half, we were what we've been for a lot of the year. We got into our shape. We got a little bit deeper, but we really limited them. They really didn't have a lot of good chances until, that last waves of attacks in the last kind of like 10 minutes, where probably that's where you could discuss whether Eric maybe should have had a sub or two a little bit earlier. Kelvin was getting a little bit tired. Joseph obviously was getting a little tired. Pereira was getting a little tired. Again, the guys were great though. I mean, and the staff, like I said, Eric just did such a good job of keeping a 2-0 lead for a very long time that second half that I really made the guys feel like we're going to see this out.
Yeah, it was once again a tale of 2 different halves for the Loons. I think it's now through their games played this season, they've allowed just 1 first half goal across all games this season, but they've allowed obviously I think 6 or 7, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm kind of trying to do the math off the top of my head from my notes from this weekend. But they've allowed 6 goals in the second half. Is this what changes for the Loons in the second half, John, for you, between the outstanding performances we see in the first half, just locking teams down, not allowing many chances in the first half? New York City at the weekend had 0 shots on target the first half, 4 on target in the second half. But then obviously in the second half, kind of bunker things down, allowed, or just kind of, I don't want to say just try and see out the game because that's obviously not what they're doing, but things certainly changed in the second half for Minnesota United this season.
Yeah, what I wrote about it was, this is a problem that a lot of teams would love to have. Like, oh, we got 2 dang many second half leads to protect. This is so difficult. I think the biggest difference I can see, and this is something that both Eric Ramsey and Michael Boxall referenced when they were talking about it post game, but the biggest difference is with the wingbacks, especially, that they're not pushing forward when Minnesota gets the ball as much. And I think that's natural. The other team is going to have their players positioned higher. And so if you're Longwane or if you're Joseph Rosales and you're looking and saying, well, the other team has a forward over here, I'm not necessarily going to go straight into the build out and rush upfield and try to be part of an attack. But because they are being conservative, which is natural when a team has a 2-0 lead, suddenly it starts to leave the team without as many outlets when they're taking the ball. When you win the ball defensively, the only outlet that most of these guys are seeing is Pereira, Load, who are forward. And then once they get on the ball, the only outlet they have pretty often is just hoofing it downfield and hoping that Yeboah and Oluwaseyi can run onto it. Not that that didn't work out with a number of chances in the second half, but it certainly is a little dispiriting when Minnesota wins the ball back and they find one of the attacking midfielders, and all of a sudden it's just a hopeless pass forward to a striker who's got two defenders around him or something like that, and it just looks like a hockey team that's icing the puck with 18 minutes to go in the third period, where it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch because they're not. It feels like they're not trying. I think it's a natural thing with the way they play and the importance they put on the attacking from the wing backs, that if those guys are hanging back a little more, it's going to end up making them look like a team that has no ideas offensively.
It's 7 games, so you can't argue against the results of how it's worked out so far. But Manny, is that kind of change in the second half sustainable over the long-term scope of the season?
What I would say is, if I can do my math real quick, you said 6 goals, so 3 of them are 18. So I need about 6 more games to see if what the real pattern is in terms of like how we're navigating. And I love the way Jon said it, really a first world problem, which is leads.
Champagne problems.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But so now you're looking at the KC game, which I think we were pretty honest in the show. And I think Eric and the staff are pretty honest that like that was not a great second half tactically for them. There was not great individual commitment to see the game out in KC. And there was not group commitment to keep the lead, a 3-0 lead. And it led to, I think we talked about maybe the largest lead we've ever given up in the history of the club, maybe. So for me, you take away those 3 goals and it's 3 other goals. And you had the New York game, which we won. So we started 2-0 second half and they scored late. And then you had a LA game at home where we had 5 starters out just coming off the week of KC. So it was tough. There was like a lot of tension about, can we see this game out? And we gave up a tough set piece. We barely gave away any chances. So to me, that was just an outlier in its own self. And then you had the game in LA where, in the second half, there was exposed where like, if we just defend too deep and don't actually move the ball and don't actually have a little bit of danger, a team can overwhelm us. So for me, I need about 6 more games to kind of have, if there's any type of second half pattern, but my gut is no. I feel like we're getting stronger and stronger. I feel like we're starting to like realize in the second half we can press a little higher when we want to kind of boss the game. And I look at the RSL result, I look at the NYC result, and like, I think don't give us a lead would be my answer to where things are right now personally. Like if we score first, I really am excited about how the game's going to go.
Yeah, I like that answer from both of you guys. I know it's a question that a lot of Loons fans have had on their mind after watching the past couple of weeks and the past couple second halves and how they've played out. Broad scope of this game, looking at kind of the players that stood out the most. Joaquin Pereira, once again, I think we said it last week, was his best performance. I think you can up that this week. Had another great performance for the Loons, 2 assists. I think that makes it 4 assists in his last 4 games, which is more than he had in the previous, what's that? I'm trying to do the math in my head. The previous 15 or so game, or previous 13 games. And if you're looking at other stats to compare how he's done recently over compared to what he did beforehand, 11 key passes over the last 4 games compared to 13 in the previous 13. He's really come on of late, guys, and he's been really impressive. We said it the past couple weeks, but it feels like with each passing week, Jon, Joaquin Pereira continues to grow in confidence and importance with how Minnesota is setting up and playing.
Yeah, there was a moment, I think it was in the second half, where Rosales was overlapping and Pereira had this, he like backheeled a through ball to Rosales, and it was one of those moments you're like, something's going on. Look out. This is a guy who's clearly getting comfortable, getting confident. This is happening. So anyway, a left-footed Argentinian midfielder making crazy plays. It reminds me of something. Don't let this guy try to go get his green card. Keep him in Minnesota.
4 games. Is it too small of a sample size, or as
Oh,
John says, Manny, is
it's
something
definitely too
happening here?
small of a sample size, but I don't care. Let's make it. Let's hype it.
It's hard, guys. I'm watching now. We're 7 games in, and we've only just seemed to get better and better every
Yeah,
game. And then now let's talk a little bit about like where can you get excited with this team right now? Everywhere,
yeah,
everywhere. So if I talk about Pereira having a great day, and if he doesn't, well, then Robin Lowe will probably have a good day, and like vice versa. So there's our two. We have 2 guys now that can like kind of like unlock lines of passing creatively in our midfield. If I talk about Joe's having trouble getting forward, to get forward, and like so, there's something in there. You talk about Tani and Yaboa seem to just be getting stronger and stronger, and maybe some days it's both of them. I felt like on Sunday it was Yaboa was a little bit off, but he still had 2 great chances that he created himself, and Tani was just all over the place. If you saw him live, Tani's energy and just
yeah.
his running and movement. And again, like I said, I kind of thought Yaboa was a little bit off, but my head is like he still had 2 of our best chances, one in the first half, one in the second half. That's not really an off day. So for me, and I didn't bring up the back line where I thought Diaz and Romero and Boxel might have had their best game of the year. So
Yeah.
my point is it's really an exciting time right now where every game it seems like we're building connections within the group, and the group is really starting to get stronger and stronger. And then we talked about Will Trapp. He was probably the man of the match, which was great to see as well.
What a nice bounce back couple games it's been for Diaz, who we talked about had kind of a howler of a game against Sporting Kansas City when he came on. But over the past couple games, he's been kind of immense at that right back or that right center back spot on the other side of Michael Boxall or Morris Duggan. He's really slotted in well over there the past couple games, Manny.
Oh yeah, I mean obviously Diaz has been outstanding couple games. It's tough for Morris because he's playing well.
Yeah.
But Boxall comes in and looks just outstanding along with Romero. So I thought the back 3 stood really tall. If you were watching the game, and again we end up defending deeper and deeper in that second half, but not panicky like I felt like some years you're like, oh no. It was just no, we're going to defend at box defending at the top of the 18, and they were just Box will just add such a calm leadership value to all of this. It was really fun to watch. And like I said, I don't think they even got their first shot on goal until very, very late in that second half. And when you have a 2-0 lead, that's a great sign that you really are, organized and structured defensively.
Having the likes of Romero and Diaz be able to step up and allow or show that there's some notable depth in that center back spot, John, is going to help out because obviously we know the injuries to midfield have kind of hit that depth, and Carlos Harvey, more a natural midfielder, but has proven to be a really good right center back in his time with the club, is able to come on and be kind of a midfield depth piece now, it feels like. And it's just the flexibility of this roster is really, I don't think there's another roster that has more flexible pieces than Minnesota across the league.
Well, I mean, it's a nice problem to have a guy like Morris Duggan come in and play pretty well, and all of a sudden it doesn't look like there's a spot for him. That's as a coach, that's probably what you want. It makes it harder to pick the lineup every week and have 5 or 6 guys be furious at you. But as a coach, that's probably the problem you want more than the problem of going, well, which 16-year-old academy kids are we putting on the bench this game? I'm not exactly sure what to do. And, let's also mention the second team has won 3 games in a row. They've played 3 games. They've won 3 games. They signed a bunch of college guys that are dominating the league. No one will tell me where the championship parade is going to be for MNUFC 2, but I think the planning is going poorly there because clearly they're going to win the league championship. And the reason I mentioned that is because last season we saw Minnesota really struggle in the middle of the year when guys were missing and guys were at tournaments because they didn't have a lot of not only depth in terms of guys who are pushing for starting places, but depth beneath that in terms of guys who can come in when you need. And you look at the second team right now and the way they're playing and a bunch of guys who've had a lot of success in college. I don't think they have as many depth worries in terms of if somehow 3 more guys get hurt. They even have a guy like Ho Yun Jung that they brought in the offseason that really hasn't made an impact yet, that is a really good player and somebody they believe in. And that you look at is more and more midfielders get hurt and say, well, yeah, they've got another guy they brought in for some money this offseason that hasn't done anything yet that might get a chance now. And I feel like that third layer of depth, even more than that second layer of depth, it's one thing to have a team that goes, a squad that goes 13, 14, 15 deep. It's another to have the level not drop off when you get down into 20, 21, 22, or, 27, 28 like they did last season.
Yeah, it's been impressive, Manny.
Oh yeah, it's just, well, first of all, it's impressive that Jon, I don't know how many layers of depth he was going to keep going. I mean, he could have kept talking in a good way. No,
the GA Cups next week. Let's talk about the under 18 team. Here we go.
It's. I mean, we didn't even bring up Harvey and the option of bringing him off the bench in the midfield, which really helped solidify some of that too. And his physicality at the end of the game on Sunday was super important. I think there's a lot to Jon's comments there about a little bit of the team and the club trying to evolve how we develop and how we create environments for development. And there was a little bit of learning lesson where, yeah, I think to develop our young academy kids that we believe have potential, like all players, having a little bit more of the higher level college guys who also can develop that potential has really made a big difference. And I think the overall environment of the entire development system for us and certainly the second team for results. And I love the second team going out there and getting results. We also always put a caveat that the development at that space is way more important than results, but competition and building belief is really important for young kids to develop. So really excited about how the second team started, not just about the wins, but just that these young academy kids and some of these college guys who are still in their development phase and potential phase are connecting along with some of our first team players that come back down and play. So that has been really fun to watch. And then, like you just said, like a player like our South Korean kid, we don't have to say like, let's see what you can do in the first 3 weeks. And if you do it, great, you're a player from this United. If you don't, we're going to get rid of you. Like there is some now layers of us really trying to give these guys the best opportunity to make it in the Minnesota United environment. And that's just really exciting because, some things don't happen overnight for players. Sometimes they have to get used to the environment, our winters, our style, our system, our coaching staff, everything. So, like I said, right now, I do feel like there's a nice vibe in the development space, and there's a nice vibe for the new players that they don't have to contribute right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've seen kind of how long it can take some guys to adjust. I mean, we just talked about Joaquin Pereira and him adjusting to the league, not hitting the ground running right away last season, but then coming in this season and seemingly being one of the more important players to the squad. Any other final notes on this 2-1 win over NYCFC the weekend before we move on to this coming weekend's game against Toronto, guys?
I have one more for you guys.
Yeah.
And it's just another one to kind of report from being there live. It was insanely weird at the stadium because part of it was like, oh my God, we're playing so well in the first half, but it was deathly quiet. And the supporters of NYCFC, even though it's a big Yankee stadium, so it feels like it's sometimes emptier than it actually is. They can get loud and rambunctious, and I was just shocked. And so then I asked one of our Loons fans who lives out there and went to the game. I said, hey, his son is actually an NYCFC supporter, which is a little inter-family drama. And he said, well, there's two reasons. One is, which wasn't as funny, is that they had a huge Red Bull fight last year, and they had to suspend a lot of the fans. And then the fans are protesting being suspended by not cheering at games. And then, so that helped solve a little bit of the environment. It was really quiet, which helped us, I think. And then the second one was that, and they still fight amongst each other too much, which I was like, wait, okay, that's now Minnesota. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I thought you'd find that comical, Jon.
I'm surprised hearing this. People who live on the East Coast are difficult and contentious. I've never heard this before.
And there's a little bit too much fighting within their own supporters group.
No, that doesn't sound right.
So
I don't believe any of that. I think you got that wrong somehow.
And then we have the one in San Diego now. We haven't talked about that, but they've actually got some serious issues that they got to figure out, because that's not a good precedent to start with away teams to start looking for fights.
Manny, you were there at Yankee Stadium. This is a question Dan and I, when we were calling the game on the broadcast, looking at the monitor, we were talking to ourselves and asking it on the broadcast. When you're at when you're watching a soccer game at Yankee Stadium, what's the best seat in the house? Like, where do you want to sit when you're watching soccer at a baseball stadium? Because obviously you're not going to do it behind home plate because you're 20 yards away from the action. So when you were there and you noted things, what was the best seat to watch soccer at Yankee Stadium?
It's probably like there's a spot in the outside field where it's really vertical and you can kind of be over the top of the game. I bet that's the best spot to kind of watch. It's really grasping at a like straw.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot there. It's just
The sight lines are all weird.
get the new stadium as quickly as possible would be my answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many of our guys are working on it? Double that. You need twice as many. Can you finish it by opening day 2026?
That would be amazing. Let's jump right into this Toronto game coming up this weekend on Saturday, 1:30 kickoff, 1 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on 1500 ESPN. Watch that one on MLS Season Pass this weekend. Toronto in a bit of a weird form, still haven't won a game, but their last two games have been draws against two of the better teams in the league in Vancouver and Miami, getting the draw on Sunday Night Soccer in Miami this weekend. What are we supposed to take away from this Toronto team that has plenty of drama themselves? I mean, Insigne didn't want to play on the team to begin the season, but now he's come back after the first 4 games, has an assist, has been impactful. Bernardeschi's the engine that makes that team go, it seems like, through the first 7 games of the season. What are we to make of this Toronto team, Manny?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. I think if you're looking at Robin, who's a really good coach, I think, and has had success in MLS trying to get a team to be better than what they are. And so I would say it's been 2 great results in terms of getting that defensive structure organized. It seems like they're doing a little bit more of like a 4-2-3-1, and they're trying to hide Insigne underneath so that they don't have the defensive issues wide. Likewise with Bernardeschi, they're trying to get him to be a little bit more of a two-way player and try to really do that. And I think the Miami game was a good example that when you're playing against Messi, they probably are going to play their best, most disciplined game because they want to show them out. You're playing against Messi. And I thought Insigne and Bernardeschi were pretty darn good in that game. I haven't seen them be that consistent against a lot of the, I would say, non-sexy MLS teams. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys have that same mentality against us this weekend. It's a great opportunity for us too. I think we match up really well against them. I think it's never easy going on the road and winning games. It's never easy getting points on the road, especially against a team that hasn't won yet. So they're going to be crazy hungry, crazy desperate. I think it'll be really physical. I think it'll be a lot of battles, but we do match up well against them. So I'm really looking forward to the game this weekend, and I'm looking forward for them to, I think I kind of hopefully expressed it throughout the show. We are playing some really good soccer right now.
Yeah, the series between these teams hasn't been played since 2023. There's a 1-1 game at Allianz Field on June 3rd that year, but there's been a lot of goals scored in this series. None more highlighted than Darwin Quintero chipping Toronto 3 times in the same match at TCF Bank Stadium in one of the more incredible performances we've ever seen from a Loons player. But plenty of goals scored. Loons still yet to find a way to win at BMO Field. John, can they do it this weekend?
Well, I mean, I think Manny hit on it. Can they get Insigne and Bernardeschi to pay attention for the whole game? That's the question about Toronto. Well, like you say, when Messi is on the other side, yeah, they're going to be engaged, but is that going to be true against Minnesota? And Manny brought up something else that I'm curious about. Is Minnesota United the least sexy team in MLS? And if not, who is below them in that ranking?
I mean, not in my eyes. I
well,
think
objectively speaking, I don't know. You're wearing a Minnesota United shirt right now, so I don't know.
I think we need to call the league office and say, like, hey, are we sexy or not? I don't know.
Well, given that the league is apparently voting on whether to flip the calendar today, I think their answer would be Minnesota. We have a team in Minnesota. I don't think that's right. We're voting about playing in the winter right now. We can't have a team in. You're saying Montreal too? We put a team in Montreal. I don't think that's right. I don't think any.
I think that's who I vote for. Least sexy team is Montreal.
Montreal's the least. Boy,
that team.
It's hard to put a team in Montreal, one of the most French city in all of North America, and somehow have it be the least sexy team in the league.
I will take it as a compliment if they tell us that, though. By the way, I will be like, fine, whatever. Like, because I know,
I don't know how you would go about ranking these things. Colorado Rapids have got to be down there too.
Oh gosh, jeez.
John's trying to get everybody in trouble today.
I'm just trying to think about who honestly, the answer is probably any team that's not on the East or West Coast in the eyes of the league overall would be up
any
there.
Any team not named Miami.
Yeah.
Probably at this point.
Flyover country. Yeah.
Flyover country.
All I got to say is, John, I better see this article in the Star Tribune coming up this week.
if wishing made it so, Jonathan.
All right, your thoughts on this match, other than whether Minnesota United are sexy or not, John?
Well, I think this is another one in a run. And if you look at the standings right now, Minnesota's schedule to start the year has, I don't think any of the teams they've played so far are above 18th in the standings. And now you've got Toronto, which I think is 29th or 28th or something like that in the overall standing. So these are the games that when you get to the end of the season, because it's gonna be a slog. It's gonna be a slog in the Western Conference. There's gonna be teams like the Galaxy and LAFC that are probably not going to be as bad as they have been all year. Teams like Sporting Kansas City that at least over 1 week have already improved. It's gonna be a battle, and as they go forward to the playoffs, and Minnesota's gonna look back at games like playing Toronto where you think this is a game that you need to pick up some points. Obviously, everybody's going to say, well, you're on the road, so a point would be good. But at no point does Minnesota feel, I think, that they can't get out of Toronto with 3 points. And I think that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point there, the schedule and how it's broken down for Minnesota. But you look at the coming games after this Toronto game. Dallas, Vancouver, Austin, Miami, all those teams are above sixth place in their respective conferences. You got a game at Houston, but then you're at St. Louis, Austin, Vancouver, Seattle, San Diego, and then Houston again. So the really tough portion of the schedule is about to kick up. And I think John said it right there, Manny. You need to get 3 points out of this one because the schedule's going to get a lot tougher here coming up in very short order.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough to get points on the road. So there is definitely an opportunity. It won't be easy, though. Again, like I said, Toronto's going to try to take this 2 games of no goals, shutouts, and 2 ties, and try to finish it off with like a win and get their first win of the year. And we're going to have to absorb that type of energy and effort, I think, quite a bit. Like I said, I think it's an afternoon game, similar to New York, where if we can get on top and get at them early, I think they'll be in trouble. When I say get at them, like really absorb their energy, I do think they're going to try to like throw some punches early. But I think if we can absorb anything that in terms of their tempo and what they're trying to do, I think we have a really good chance of getting out there with 3 points.
Based on the drama surrounding the team and I guess all the offseason issues that he had in front of him, was Robin Fraser the new head coach in the most difficult spot, John?
I mean, just
considering
being in
his
the
star
manager's
player
chair in Toronto is being in the most difficult spot. It's funny because Toronto is also a huge media market and a huge market that's always going to have some pressure. And you add in everything else that's happening with Toronto and the guys they have on the field and the guys that are supposed to be their team leaders. That's a hard job. That's a hard job right there.
Yeah. Looking forward to this one. Should be a fun one. As I said, 1:30 p.m. kickoff for that one. 1 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself coming up on 1500 ESPN this Saturday. Boys, looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking to you next week right back here on the same podcast channel. We'll talk to you then. And then thank you to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Evan Huntler, and Kyle Hayward for putting this together. Loons fans, we'll talk to you again next week.